If you were to travel back to the early 2010s and say that Angry Birds would lose its relevance in the future, people would have thought you were crazy. At that time, Angry Birds was a complete media empire that featured toys, games, and even movies. Angry Birds had the potential to become a global brand like Pokémon and Hello Kitty, which were earning millions of dollars for their franchise. Unfortunately, the brand has since lost its relevance and is now regarded as a tale of the internet's past. This story is about the rise and fall of Angry Birds. However, the management of the Angry Birds team was not determined. It all started in 2003 with 3 students from Helsinki University in Finland who participated in a mobile game development contest. The game they created was called The King of the Cabbage World, which helped them win despite the cutthroat competition. The game was later sold by them. They realized that their passion could be turned into a successful career, and it was a life-changing moment for them. They decided to take action and started a mobile game company called Relude. Within less than a year of operation, the 3 founders of the company decided to name the company Rovio, which means bonfire in Finnish. The name was selected to reflect the company's fiery determination to make a big impact in the gaming industry. They launched their first game, which eventually became the widely popular Angry Birds game. The path ahead for the company was bumpy, especially considering that this was a time before smartphones and the advanced technology that we have today. Launching a mobile gaming company at a time the mobile gaming industry didn't exist was a bold and risky move. In the early days of the company, Rovio released 51 games, but unfortunately, none of them were able to sell well or capture the attention of the gaming community. By 2009, Rovio's financial situation had become so desperate that the company was on the verge of closing down. However, it was during this challenging time that the idea for their most impactful game was born. The 50-second game that they released was called Angry Birds. At the time, Rovio's concept for Angry Birds was truly unique, as no one thought that the main characters of a game could be legless birds that would be launched into the air with a slingshot. The mechanics of the game were designed to make use of the iPhone's touchscreen technology, which meant that players could use their fingers to launch the birds and trajectory lines to guide their aim. The introduction of Angry Birds, their 50-second game, proved to be an effective move for the company. It took 6 months for it to gain momentum, and the game eventually became a massive hit and reached the #1 spot on the App Store. The game's unique concept made it different from other mobile games at the time. Angry Birds was a huge success that exceeded all expectations. Unlike other games, which typically remain popular for a few weeks, Angry Birds remained on top of the App Store for a record-breaking 275 days, capturing a global audience across all age groups. It was the team's first and only game to achieve such massive profitability and recognition. The success of this game was only rising. It even became a cultural phenomenon. Everyone could easily recognize the characters of the game. Every kid wanted Angry Birds apparel and plushies, and the merchandise was selling out quickly. It is remarkable how a small mobile game made by an unknown company became one of the most popular and influential franchises of the early 2010s. Angry Birds incredibly impacted the mobile gaming industry, popular culture, and even merchandise sales. It was a true empire, and it all started with a simple idea and a lot of hard work from the Rovio team. The team understood that to build on their success, they needed to turn Angry Birds into a brand that could rival Disney or Pokémon. They realized they needed to be more than just a game development company to create a global brand. Thus, they changed the company's name to Rovio Entertainment, signifying a new direction aimed at building an Angry Birds universe. Angry Birds achieved its first 1 billion download milestone in 2012, 3 years after its initial launch in 2009. In 2014, it reached the 2 billion download mark. During this period, Rovio was focusing on creating more games focused on the concept of Angry Birds. Some of these games were Angry Birds Seasons, Angry Birds Rio, Angry Birds Friends, Angry Birds Space Star Wars, and many more. Their global popularity was so great that a theme park based on their brand was built in central China. Their growth was inevitable and was about to become as big as Hello Kitty, which was a $9 billion business. They made history by becoming a widely popular mobile game. In 2012, their revenue was $195 million, with 50% of it coming from merchandise sales alone. With an unstoppable brand, they were on their way to great success. However, there were loopholes in their business that ultimately led to their downfall. The global fame of Angry Birds was fading as the company started focusing only on exploiting the franchise to make money. They forgot their roots, which were good games. For instance, a new mobile game was released by Rovio when Angry Birds was at its peak, named The Amazing Alex. The game included puzzles and physics, but failed to get the expected attention. It's no wonder you haven't heard of it. Game number 52 was the only successful one that the company released. It raises the question of whether the company understood the tactics of making the globally famous game, or did they just get lucky with it? As the company released more and more games, they began to lose their originality and became increasingly repetitive and boring. One of them was Angry Birds Transformers, which was criticized by fans as it required microtransactions after every move. The storyline of Angry Birds Fight was quite similar to Candy Crush, with the Angry Birds characters being used as a ripoff. Angry Birds Go attempted to imitate Mario Kart, but unfortunately fell short and felt like a desperate remake. As the games began to lose their appeal and fans became disinterested, Rovio shifted its focus from game development to generating revenue through sales and merchandising. They began attaching the Angry Birds name to various products and games to profit from their brand's popularity. The underperformance of the new titles contributed to the downfall of the company. The situation became so bad that in 2014, they had to lay off 110 workers, which accounted for approximately 15% of their workforce. Their inability to adapt to changing trends resulted in their brand becoming mundane and uninteresting. The consequences of these actions were inevitably felt in their merchandise sales. Consequently, they made the strategic decision to consolidate all of their popular features into one product, which was Angry Birds. By the mid-2010s, Rovio even funded studios to come up with new creative ideas that would gain momentum, but none of them worked. The only hope for their survival was to milk the Angry Birds brand and pray for the fan base to come around. But as expected, this strategy failed. By the middle of the 2010s, the relevance of Angry Birds had fallen as compared to previous years. Between 2014 and 2015, merchandise sales dropped by 43%, leading Rovio to once again make the difficult decision to lay off 260 employees. The truth is, a mobile game can only remain popular for so long, and the key to survival is to adapt to changing trends. Disney built an empire by introducing Mickey Mouse in multiple original titles for 80 years and building other entities to go with the trends. They would have never succeeded by only milking the groundbreaking Mickey debut. Rovio's strategy was to solely rely on a mobile game from 2009 that had become successful and to continue to profit from it for as long as possible. By 2015, the strategy had backfired and the Angry Birds brand had lost its appeal. Owning Angry Birds merchandise was no longer considered trendy or exciting. Despite the company's fall, it received a ray of hope in 2016 when the Angry Birds movie was released. The film had an all-star cast, including Bill Hader and Danny McBride, and was made on a budget of $73 million. To the company's relief, the movie went on to earn $352 million at the box office. Unfortunately, the sequel to the movie released in 2019 made less than half of what the first movie had earned. To make matters worse, the company lost any chance of regaining its reputation when it removed the old Angry Birds game from mobile phones, leaving its loyal fans in shock as they couldn't play the game anymore. The company started to rely on the success of the first Angry Birds movie and attempted to lure the remaining fans toward new games that had microtransactions. This strategy received a lot of criticism and upset the fans, which urged the company to release an apology letter. Dear fans, the old Angry Birds games are some of the most loved, downloaded, and known games in the world. We know we're so proud to have made them, and we are overwhelmingly happy that they've meant so much to you. But then we took them out of circulation and didn't say anything, and that let you down. Not cool. We promise our heart was in the right place. We wanted to focus on building new and even better games to serve our players in the best possible way going forward. Rovio is re-releasing Angry Birds for both devices and consoles to restore what has been broken, hoping for the nostalgia factor of the fans who once played this original and creative game.